welcome back to the Strong Mind podcast. I am sat down in our living room with my husband Angus Kill, and we've each got a cup of tea, and we are going to answer your questions about performance psychology. So these are questions that you asked me on Instagram, and we got a whole bunch of questions. We might not be able to get through all of them, and some of them are kind of more relevant to performance psychology than others. Like some people asked us about fear and sort of fear management and getting scared and that kind of thing, and I guess we would put that in a bit of a different category of conversation. So there might be a few that we skip past fairly quickly, do you think, or just not even ask?
Yeah, a bit of both, but we will answer them one day.
Yeah. All right, so should we get started?
Yeah, okay. So, just first question first.
Actually, one thing we should say is that we have a whole online course on performance psychology, and we hope that after listening to this, some of you might want to do it. But our intention here is to answer your questions as best as we can, so that when you're listening to this, our answer isn't just we have an online course, because we know that not everyone can do it, not everyone wants to do it, and we really hope that we can give you all some takeaways. But we obviously also can't include a whole online course worth of information in an answer. So, we're going to do our best.
And I think maybe our conversation will give you an idea of the kind of discussions we have in our Q&A support calls during the course throughout the 6 weeks. Cool. All right, so first question first. Do you think it's possible to eliminate performance anxiety completely?
Yeah, I do. I don't think that every climb you do is gonna cause you to have performance anxiety. Maybe do a quick definition of performance anxiety. It's fairly obvious, but feeling of stress, a physiological response in the body about a performance. So it's not fear of falling. It's pretty similar to fear of failure, but slightly different. Fear of failure we can have on a climb that's like the warm-up, and often fear of failure does hit when it's a climb that we think we should be able to do, whereas performance anxiety is really more specific to performances that we really care about, that are at a higher challenge level for us. So think about your projecting sends or like an on-site that you care about. And I think that it's possible to work on your mindset enough, or even just have a mindset where you don't care that much, and that would then cause you to not have performance anxiety. But I think you can also say that you don't have to eliminate performance anxiety. You can simply work with it, and actually a small amount of performance anxiety can be really useful for performance. So like people think of stress as being a bad thing, but stress at a lower level can be really useful. It focuses our attention, it energizes us, it makes us more focused on the task at hand rather than being distracted. Even things like just like heart rate increasing and blood going to the muscles can also be useful for performance. It's just when that performance anxiety gets too high that then it starts distracting us, causing us to be too tense, too stressed on the wall, and that's when performance drops.
I think that can be quite a nice reframe, that we don't actually perform optimally when we have zero stress. So that bit of stress could be, what we need to actually be performing at our best. And it's kind of a, when we notice that we've got a little bit of performance anxiety, like it means that this route or this ascent means something to us.
And that can actually be a really useful tactic, can't it? Where if you feel a bit nervous before a climb, instead of going, oh my God, I'm nervous, this is bad, or this is going to affect my performance, you might be able to just say to yourself, actually, this is what I need to climb well. This is normal. This means that I care about this route, and that's a good thing, because it means that when it comes to the crux, I'm going to be so laser focused. And I'll say that to myself. And also, I would say that before a climb, for me personally, I don't know how this is for you, Angus, but like that can be the most stressful part because you're not climbing. So, you're kind of left alone with like your own thoughts and your own stress response. But then you step off the ground and then you can drop into the moves and drop into flow, which, maybe we'll come on to in other questions. And it's almost like a relief when you step off the ground. And like before you leave the ground is actually the worst bit.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very practiced at focusing in the moment when we're climbing. When we don't have the climbing to do that, that can be quite stressful. Okay, second question. Do you think it's ever beneficial to step away from climbing for a spell in order to help mindset?
Yeah, I think this is a really hard question to answer because I feel like, say for example, someone brought that to like the coaching space. Whether stepping away from climbing would be beneficial for someone would just depend on so many different factors. So I guess like the really short answer is like, yeah, I can imagine it could be beneficial. It could be nice to just see what life is like without climbing, see what your headspace is like without climbing, see what comes up for you when you don't have climbing in your life. And, if you really, really miss it, be like, okay, what do I miss about climbing? What is it that I actually love about climbing? And then when you return to the sport, how can you maximize those things that you love about it and maybe let go of the things that were like unhealthy or caused anxiety or like were toxic? So it could help you really reshape your mindset, the mindset that you want to have for the sport. I also think sometimes though that like people can get in such a bad place with their climbing that they're like at a loss of what to do. So they're like, you know what, maybe I'm just going to quit. And I think that so many students who come to us and to our courses are in that headspace, aren't they?
We're like the last resort somehow.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes we are just like the last resort because like, oh, I tried physical training, I tried doing this, I tried doing that. And then, when someone is like maybe so scared to fall that it's preventing them from enjoying the sport, or when their mindset is so anxious around performance, or when they've attached so much of their identity and self-worth to outcomes in climbing, that sometimes then they're like, okay, well there's only one thing left for it, and that's to quit. But I think then that's not necessarily the answer unless you do the mindset work. And then I ask the question, maybe you could just continue climbing but do the mindset work.
Yeah. And there's a concern for me that if you were having a hard time climbing and then you just took a break and things were much better, that you conceptualise climbing as this stressful place and then not climbing is much more chill, was really it's the mindset work that's going to make the difference.
Yeah. Usually when people are not enjoying climbing, there's something you can do to your mindset to enjoy it again. And I kind of think that that's always probably the case, unless there's like some other like external factors, like, you just can't go climbing enough, or the place where you live is just terrible for climbing or something. But I mean, imagine like if someone got into climbing and loved it and did it for them at the start and then didn't love it, why can't they find their way back to that is the question I would ask.
Yeah. Great. Okay, the next question. How do you go from experiencing flow state by chance to being able to access it on demand?
Okay,
Can I ask you to really quickly define flow state as well?
Yeah, okay, so flow is a state of being, what we would call a performance state, where you're completely focused on the task at hand. So in this context, that would be climbing. You're totally immersed in the moment, you're focused, you're concentrated. There are other dimensions to flow that can happen, like sometimes time can feel like it's distorted, it can speed up or slow down, but that's not always the case. There's this thing that happens called immediate feedback, where the feedback you get from your body is immediate and clear, so you don't need to kind of like process the information. You don't need to like go, oh, my left hand's on a good hold, so now I'm going to move my left foot. It's like, no, you just get that sensory feedback from your hand, and then you move immediately without having to kind of like think it through. There's this feeling of like automaticity and control and also effortlessness. So there's this feeling of ease in an otherwise very difficult task. So I think they're kind of like the key dimensions of flow.
And it's pleasurable, right? Enjoyable.
But crucially, often we only realize how pleasurable a flow state experience is when we pop out of it. And when we pop out of that flow experience, we often are left feeling very like ecstatic and like really psyched. And now a lot of people confuse flow experiences with peak performance. Like a peak performance, like a PB, would be like your hardest send, something like that. And the two can like correlate, as in like if you're in flow, you're more likely to have a peak performance, because flow is also synonymous with optimal functioning. It's when we're at our best. But you could have a flow experience and then fall off the top of your project too. So it's not the same thing as sending or doing well.
So flow is optimal performance, as in we're optimally focused, but peak performance is kind of talking about performance as an outcome. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's all confusing about the term performance.
Yeah.
Like when we talk about performance, we mean it as like a state of functioning, a state of being. Whereas when some people talk about performance, they mean like the outcomes.
Yeah, I like to think of the quality of your engagement with the task. I always think when I'm talking about flow, or when I'm trying to describe flow, I sound like a dodgy salesman that's promising way too much. It's like, oh yeah, you'll have like, you'll be super focused, and like you'll basically become the task. You know, you'll have immediate feedback with everything you're doing, and it'll feel really good, and it'll also feel really almost effortless, even though you're climbing really hard. It's like, how can all that be true? And I'll say, oh, you're already capable of this. You can already do this. You've just got to access it.
Yeah, everyone's capable of it. Yeah.
It just sounds too good to be true, but like it actually is true.
Yeah. That's a good point. It can feel a bit unicorny though, can't it, to people? Like it can, even though I would say that I access flow fairly frequently in my climbing, it's not a given that I'm always in flow. So it is somewhat unicorny. I think.
I'd like to remind people that you look outside of climbing as well, where you might have experienced it. I think if you play a musical instrument, for example, that's a common way you might have experienced flow.
Or writing. Even just
riding a bike.
Day job. The other thing that we do in our online course, Performance Hacks, is we actually think about performance states as being on a scale from choking and distraction to flow, and also a state we call clutch, which is when we're also very focused on the task at hand and we're performing well, but there's not this state of effortlessness. And I think that that's something that climbers find hard to relate to with flow experiences, is that when we are climbing something that's very hard for us, sometimes the state that we're in is actually more like clutch rather than flow. But we like to not sort of, we don't value flow more than clutch, you know, because some climbers just prefer that state of effortfulness. And then also there's all the places to stop along the way, like being present, being focused, being determined. You know, these are also like beneficial states, and people are quite interested in flow for obvious reasons. But I think that it's not black and white. It's not like, oh, we're climbing shit or we're in flow. It's like there's so many different places we can be along that scale, from distraction to like completely immersed in an epic flow state.
Yeah, and all of those stages along the way are worthwhile. So back to the question, how do you go from experiencing flow state by chance to being able to access it on demand?
Yeah, so I think that like accessing it on demand, like just like, I think some athletes can do that, and they're probably some of the best climbers in the world. And I think even some of the absolute best climbers in the world, maybe, you know, they're not actually accessing flow all the time.
It's not on demand, it's regular.
Yeah. And then also, this question's almost like too big a question to answer. There's so many things that you can do to, what I would say is to increase your chances of accessing flow. So it's not like making it like on demand, but having it be that when you step off the ground, you have a high chance of accessing flow at some point on the climb. There's just so many things you can do. And like a blueprint that we go through in our course is like first like to tackle mindset stuff. So optimize your mindset. That might mean looking at whether you have a growth mindset. It might look like maximizing positivity. It might look like taking responsibility more for your climbing experience. It might look like being more grateful.
Prioritizing the experience, or
prioritizing the experience rather than the outcomes is massive. So like firstly, taking a look at your mindset. Then we look at barriers to performance and flow. So the thing that's going to get in your way. So maybe overthinking or expectations or comparisons or fear of failure, fear of falling. These are all the things that prevent you from accessing flow.
And they're essentially distractions, right?
Yeah, they're all potential distractions. There's so many potential distractions for us as climbers. And so much about accessing flow is about making sure that those distractions aren't there. And I think so many climbers don't realise how much of their climbing experience is like plagued by these potential distractions, and that they could look at their psychology, look at their mindset, look at how they're climbing and their habits and behaviours, and kind of remove some of those distractions. So that's massive. And then gateways are kind of like the things, it's more like the positive side of the coin. It's like what's going to help you access flow, potentially even when those distractions are still there, because we can't always remove all the distractions. But like maybe you've got a little bit of performance anxiety, or there's a bit of expectations going on in your mindset, but what if you're just like super confident and super positive? That can make up for so much. So confidence, positivity,
getting the challenge level right.
Getting the challenge level right is absolutely crucial to flow. And actually that's one of like the sort of the things that defines flow, is when the challenge meets our skill level, and when the challenge doesn't meet our skill level, we just can't access flow. But we can kind of artificially tweak those two things, which we talk a lot about in our course. What other gateways are? There's letting go, presence. So like often being present, being mindful is like a precursor state to accessing flow. So if you can practice certain mindfulness exercises before you climb, you're going to be more likely to access flow. And then what we call I call letting go, which isn't literally letting go of the wall, but more kind of just letting go of that like attachment to the outcome and kind of dropping in, fully engaging. And sometimes as a climber that can mean like to stop hesitating, to stop second guessing yourself, and just sort of fully trust your body. Trust is massive gateway for flow. And then at the end of the course, or the end of our blueprint, we kind of bring it all together, and that's when you'll kind of create your own like practices for better accessing flow, create your own tools, so mind tools that you can use in the moment, like breath work, mindfulness, that kind of thing. And then also like a pre-performance routine. Also, massive one for better accessing flow is how you set goals, which I think there's a question about that, so maybe
great. Well, that was a great question, because I think that's kind of the object of the course, right? To go to make it less like by chance and more, if not on demand, but much more likely, much more.
And then it's just silly, right, that as climbers we focus so much on all these other things that we can do to climb better, when we all know that we climb better when we're in a certain state of mind. So why aren't we working towards accessing that state of mind more than like just training our fingers the whole time?
Yeah.
And we also know that we enjoy climbing more in that state. So it's kind of like this double bonus of like, whoa, I climbed better and I sent my project, but also it was flipping enjoyable.
There's marginal gains you get on a fingerboard, but you're distracted. Like it doesn't matter how strong you are, if you're distracted, it doesn't,
Yeah, all of that finger strength's going to go to waste. And we fingerboard too, so like it's not like we're against physical training, but like why aren't we having a more holistic approach to it?
Yeah, training the thing that that really matters, and that it kind of is just a really good bit of climbing, right?
It's why I climb. It's why I climb.
So, how often do you climb in flow state? Does it change based on outside factors?
Yeah, so how often do I climb? I think every time I go climbing, I'll have little pieces and pockets of flow. But to step off from the ground and be in flow from the bottom of the climb to the top is rare for me, because so often there's just an easier bit of that climb or a bit that's a bit too hard, and that's where flow has to occur when the challenge meets the skill level. So if you're on an easy bit of a climb, I mean, there's things you can do to kind of increase the challenge of that easy section, which maybe we won't go into, but yeah, but yeah, pockets of climb. And there could just be a few seconds. Like we went bouldering the other day, I had little pockets of flow. For me, and this isn't really one of the dimensions of flow that's sort of in the academic literature, but it's something that people talk a lot about, and it's that creativity, for me, is what I would call an indicator of flow. And so when I'm out bouldering and I do something a bit unusual with my hips, or I move in a creative way that I could never have thought through from the ground, that for me is oh, that was a little flow moment.
Oh no, I like that. I forget that as an indicator of flow. I really like that. And creativity. And the second half of the question was, does it change based on outside factors?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I mean, you can't control everything. If I was in a flow on a boulder problem and then my daughter starts crying really loudly, maybe that's going to pop me out of flow, or something throws me off, the next handhold's a bit wet, or I mean, outside factors, I don't know what that person's counts as outside factors, but yeah.
Okay, and how can one set goals but act without expectations? It always feels contradictory to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. That's a really good one. And I think that that's part of a kind of wider question in climbing of how to balance outcomes and processes. How do you set goals and care about maybe climbing the next grade or sending something that's hard for you, but then also be in this state of mind when you do it that's focused more on the moves as it comes. And I think there's quite a lot of things you can do. I mean, one is to just really work on not getting too attached to that outcome. I think the mistake that lots of climbers make is they really put their self-worth and their identity and their future happiness on the outcome of a specific climb. And this isn't just professional climbers or climbers that climb to a high level, but even more beginner, intermediate climbers are doing this to some extent as well. They just really, really, really want to get it. And they're basically valuing that goal or that outcome more than kind of the reasons why they go climbing in the first place. And they kind of lose sight of those reasons why they go climbing in the first place. And I think that the people climb for how it makes them feel in the moment, not for the things they get to tick off at the end of the day, or the grade that you get to say that you've climbed. And I think that a lot of the time, this question on a deeper level is the tension between who we are as kind of individuals and what we want to fill our lives with in terms of experiences and what makes us thrive and what makes us feel good, versus who we are as social creatures. And so many of the attachment to goals and outcomes are there because we're very socially driven. We really care what people think. On some sort of level, we're kind of playing this status game, even just within our peer groups as climbers. We tend to value climbers more the harder they climb, on some level. And then I think that does more for psychology in interesting ways and in ways that we're not really aware of. But then expectations, more specifically, it's okay, we have a whole lesson on expectations. And the problem with expectations is when your performance doesn't match your expectations. So that's when it's most distracting, is when you go, I think I should be able to do this thing. And then you try and you don't do it. And when there's that gap between what we expect of us.
Or even while you're trying, it's not even the outcome. It's just, if you've got really rigid or clear expectations, the reality will never completely meet those expectations. There'll be something that's different, and there will always be a gap if you have rigid expectations, right?
Yeah. So just to put that in just simple terms, even just on a warm up, you're expecting it to feel easy because that's the climb that you chose for your warm up, and as you're climbing, it's not easy. I'm getting pumped. This hole's slippy. I might fall. You know, that's just like the absolute like antithesis to the like conditions you want for flow. You know, that when there's that should and you're in that your thinking mind and you're stressed and you want things to be different. I think when we're in that state of mind when we want things to be different, that completely disconnects us from the task and from our present experience. And that's like the worst thing for flow ever, because flow really is all about connection. It's about being connected to the task and what we're doing in this really immediate way where there's no gap. So yeah, expectations are killer for flow. And so yeah, I mean, there's so many things you can do, but like the biggest thing really is like to take your expectations lightly, not get too attached, like have a fluid relationship with expectations. Some things that can help that is knowing that like climbing is just a really hard sport that can totally throw you curveballs. Like even on a warm up, you know, that's like 10 grades easier than what you usually climb at. Climbing might just be like, no, you're not having this today. Like we're not going to let you pass. Like you're gonna find this warm up hard. And just being humble around climbing in general, that climbing's always a somewhat challenging sport.
That's part of respecting the challenge, part of respecting the sport. It's part of what makes the sport what it is. And if we knew what were going to happen, we probably wouldn't do climbing.
Yeah, and that's the other nice thing, isn't it? Is like to say it's nice to not know. Like imagine if every time you had an expectation around your climbing performance, it was always fulfilled exactly how you expected. Yeah. Wouldn't climbing be so boring? So like coming back to that kind of curiosity, like embracing the challenge, growth mindset, all of that kind of thing can really help as well.
Yeah, I like to think we do. I can understand why this question says, you know, it feels contradictory to set goals without having any expectations. But yeah, those expectations don't need to be big expectations. They don't need to be fixed. They could be quite small ones about, this is what I think might happen, but you know, my expectations aren't based on an outcome. They're based on, I think this is going to be a good challenge. I'm going to enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
Or it's going to be like, I'm going to be challenged here, rather than I'm going to tick the route.
Yeah, depends on the goal that the person's asking about, and maybe it's nice to just not know that you can do something too. Like if it's a goal that's hard for you, to go in and go, I don't know what's going to happen, and that's part of the fun. But then I think sometimes in climbing that you know, it's important to get the challenge level right. So there's always going to be some kind of expectation there. But part of it's just about letting go of those expectations when you step on the wall. It's like maybe you have them on the ground and then maybe you can reflect after the performance is over. But when I'm actually on the wall, I'm not thinking about those things.
Yeah, just while you said that as well, I think actually what's kind of behind this question is perhaps being aware of what the expectations are. Sometimes we don't realise that we're carrying expectations, but you know, I find if you say them out loud to your belayer or your spotter, I think that can actually help, because you realise that actually maybe your expectations aren't in line with what you actually value in climbing.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so next question, how to invoke your try hard on projects when your allostatic load is high? Quickly, what's allostatic load?
Yeah, so allostatic load is just sort of your general stress, as far as I understand it. So there's lots of things that can contribute to that, like it could be emotional stress, it could be your nutrition's been bad, it could be that you didn't sleep well, it could be that you've got life stresses, work stresses, and then also maybe you like trained really hard the day before.
Yeah, the aggregation of stress in your life, like not just thinking about climbing, but all the sort of surrounding things, right, like work.
Yeah. Yeah, so one thing I would say straight off the bat is like, you know, there might need to just be some acceptance that like you might not be able to perform at your absolute best physically and mentally. So you might not be able to access flow when your allostatic load is really high, as easily as you might when it's not. That might not be the case. I think people are different here. Like I can often access flow even when, like, you know, I'm tired or but it probably is going to be less likely. And then also, like, you know, when you say try really hard, do you mean like that perceived effort? Or do you mean your actual effort? Or do you mean like the outcomes of those efforts? You know, there's 3 different things there, isn't there? And it could be that, like, you know, say you're trying your project on like the first day when everything's going well, you might come close to sending it and maybe you give it a 10 out of 10 effort. The next day, your allostatic load's really high. You still give it a 10 out of 10 effort, but you only get like 2/3 of the way up. So the outcomes change because your allostatic load's high, but your actual effort that you've put in that moment was just as high. And I think different people struggle with different bits of that, right? Like some people, like if they show up at the crag and they're already a bit tired, they actually just can't put in that 10 out of 10 effort, even if that actually means doing less of the route. Whereas like I feel like I can often show up and put in the 10 out of 10 effort, even if the outcome's different. Yeah, it's hard to know sort of like how the allostatic part is a fact. Do you know what I mean? Like part of this for me is like a question of motivation. And then part of me is this is just a question of like, how can I learn to try harder?
Yeah, I think there's a bit of both.
And then part of it's also around like acceptance of like, maybe today's not the day that you try hard because maybe you need to rest.
I think perhaps for you and I, something how we kind of try hard or maybe experience flow is that sometimes that actually is a letting go or a bit of an escape. You know, that try hard moment is, although it's effortful, it's escapism. You know, it's even if there is a high allostatic load, this is my time to be free, be me, be doing what I want to do.
And it actually feels restful and refreshing compared
to
the rest of life.
Refreshing, even though it's effortful in another sense.
Totally, yeah, that's such a good point. Whereas I don't know if other people are like that.
I think it depends. If climbing if there's other stress in climbing, like fear of falling, then along with an allostatic load, that adding more stress, more psychological stress, I think there's going to have to be some acceptance there.
Well, that reminds me of like the time when I feel like my allostatic load was highest, which was after my dad died, and had just had a lot of like sort of unprocessed emotions and stress and kind of PTSD really. And so I could still access flow and I could still try hard climbing, but kind of only bouldering.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't, having like the psychological challenge level be high on like a scary climb was just way too much for me.
Yeah.
Like it just tipped me into like a too stressed kind of state. I was basically sort of like hovering on the edge of anxiety quite a lot. So yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of different avenues that you could go down answering this question. I mean, we could just sort of do a few tips around like how to try harder. Yeah. I actually have a blog on my website about how to try hard, which is like quite long and it's got loads of tips. Maybe you can link to that in the show notes as well.
That, yeah. And mindset, of course, we talk about trying hard as well.
Yeah. I think one of the big barriers for people to try hard is actually performance anxiety and fear of failure. People will give up because they're like, well, I can't send, so what's the point? Whereas like my mindset is always like, well, every move that I try, each move that I do is like training for mind and body, whether I get to the top or not. And it's just fun and enjoying and I don't know, like, and then weirdly, there's routes that I've sent where like I've really believed on some level that there's no chance I'll be able to get to the top, and then by just clinging on, especially on on-sites because you don't know when you might be able to get a bit back, that I've just like fully committed. Like that's more clutch state of just like super effortful, like I'm on, I'm off, I'm in it, I'm just gonna keep going, and then like, you know, get to the top. It's kind of like one of the things I'm best at probably, isn't it, that try hard?
Yeah, I've seen you do 10 moves beyond what you kind of should have been able to do, you know, on like power endurance style climbing. Like I think in Mission Impossible there's a video of that somewhere and you were like just power screaming for so long through this run out. It's like, what on earth? Like what is going on? How is that?
And I'll do it on climbs that just don't even mean anything too. Like, do you remember that top rope in my pregnancy? It was like a 7-8 top rope.
Where was that?
It was in France.
Oh.
It was Seb.
Argentière.
Yeah, and it was like, I was actually really trying hard on that, but like literally that climb like meant, you know, the outcome of it like was nothing, but like I just can't help myself but try really hard.
I do remember that, yeah.
I just love it. I don't
Yeah.
know. Find out how to love it.
Yeah, I think there's the mindset thing here, the kind of the experience mindset, or you know, your sort of why in climbing, what you're there for, your motivation, the intrinsic motivation for being there. I think that's a big sort of component of this question.
Yeah, we have a whole bit on motivation in the course, don't we? Which I
Yeah.
think is really powerful for people.
Yeah, I think people can probably tell from our conversation how much comes into all of these ideas and how much there is to explore in all of them. Yeah. Okay, so next question. Do you have a way of organising and accessing different mindsets, like putting away toys in a toy box?
Yeah, it's called our course, online course, Mindset Makeover. No, I mean, I feel bad saying that, obviously, but yeah, I think you have to think a lot about these things and talk about them and find words for them, because mindset is so nebulous, it's so confusing, it's so complex. But the more that you talk about it and the more you're like, this word for me kind of like captures this kind of mindset that I'm looking for. And that's kind of really what we wanted to do with Mindset Makeover, wasn't it? It was like very specific around mindset, and it was like taking all of these kind of different mindsets that we have either talked about, read about, researched, and then try to sort of like conceptually divide them, knowing full well that they all overlap massively. But then it's like going, okay, well, I'm at this stage in my climbing right now. So what is the kind of the mindset that I want to shape, and maybe, or the mindset that I want to operate with right now? And maybe there's like a few different facets to that mindset. Like, I don't know, for me at the moment, what I would call like a sufficiency mindset or an abundance mindset is something that I'm kind of like actively trying to like have online for myself at the moment, because when you've got a little baby, it's so easy to like slip into the like, I'm lacking time, I'm lacking sleep, I'm lacking energy, I'm lacking training stimulus. And so like for me, you know, just working on that, like I have enough time, I have enough sleep, have enough energy to climb. Yeah, not exactly how I want to, but to love it and get something out of it and to challenge myself. So like that's just an example.
And how are you pulling that out of the toy box?
Yeah, so a lot of it is like in a dialogue. It could also be how I notice I'm speaking with others. Like something that I can slip into massively when I converse with others is to just like complain. I think it's just like a British thing. Let's just talk about how shit our lives are so people don't think that you're boasting.
And a new parent thing.
It's a new parent thing as well, like, and especially when you hang out with other parents, if you're like, yeah, I'm having a great time, my life's so full of the things I love, they're like, who are you? What is wrong with you?
I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to get into the habit of actually always saying that it's good.
Yeah.
Because I keep saying, oh, I'm so tired, or like, oh, I'm not doing much climbing, but I kept trying to every time go, but you know what, it's good. It's a good thing. It's hard and it's good.
Yeah. So really like being mindful of how you speak to others, because you do embody that. You kind of, you say something, when you put something out there into the world, you internalize it on some level. And then just like reframing things as well. And then, you know, if I was like really on top of things right now, it might be like journaling, meditation, mantras, little practices and exercises that I might do if I was really working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're quite clear in our Mindset Makeover course, all these practices of how your mindset comes into practice. And, you know, we can talk about mindset as something you really practice rather than something you just think about.
Yeah.
But just how this crossover, because, you know, that's Mindset Makeover that we kind of just always have available, but we're doing this performance hacks course really soon.
Yeah.
And how this crosses over into performance hacks, which I think, and in ways we've sort of touched on already as well.
Well, there is a chapter on mindset in performance hacks.
True.
But I think did they say toolbox or toy box?
Toy box.
Because you can also think of it as like a toolbox, and we have a chapter in performance hacks called Mind Tools, which is more like tools or skills, maybe you can even think of them, which are kind of things that you do in the moment to manage your psychology. And they're quite easy interventions. So if you can't be asked with all this mindset stuff and kind of digging deep, which we obviously don't recommend, we love the digging deep stuff, but like, you know, just breath work, or like how you focus you know, your attention in the moment on maybe like how the handholds feel, or like what you can see with your eyes, or like how you manage negative thoughts or how you manage emotions. It's nice to have like go-to tools that you can use to do those things in the moment as a climber, and they can be really powerful. Maybe some just quick fire ones. Are there any quick, surefire ways to achieve flow? I reckon you need to do the background work, really. You might get into a place where once you've done all the background work in your mindset, removing barriers, maximizing gateways, then having a pre-performance ritual can be kind of like your best bet to access flow. But if you've not done the other stuff first, I think it would be hard to just like, quickly get into flow.
But the quickest thing someone could do, if there was something, could be to get the challenge level right.
Yeah, the quickest thing...
It's not a quick fire way of accessing flow.
But getting the challenge level right is quite hard if you've got things like fear of falling going on, or when you don't really know all the things that go into making a climb challenging, and you don't really know also like what your set of skills are, and how your perception of your skills and your perception of your ability affects the skill component of that balance. So getting the challenge level right, it seems quick and easy, but it's not. We have like a whole lesson on how to do that in Performance Hacks.
Okay, as a coach, how do you deal with performance pressure, climbing with students and peers, feeling like you should be able to climb harder, imposter syndrome, etc.?
Yeah, so I quite like this question, and I think that this affects a lot of us, even when we're not like really high level climbers, but maybe we're someone who, you know, is seen at the climbing gym a lot, or like coaches the kids groups, or, you know, there's a lot of people sort of like in the climbing industry who are like in that maybe mentor, coach, instructor-y kind of role, and then those people can often like put expectations on themselves, or think that other people expect certain things of them.
And how does this come up for you?
How does it come up for me? It definitely used to come up more in the past, and I've worked on it a lot, and now it comes up less. And when it does come up, I kind of almost use it as like an opportunity. I use it as an opportunity to like keep my ego in check, honestly. Like say I walk into the climbing gym and there's people that like, I think there's certain types of people who will like trigger this for each of us. You know, maybe it's like the strong dude climbers in the climbing gym, or like, you know, whoever it is for you, there'll be someone who you're like, oh, I don't know if I love like, I don't know if I really want to fail in front of them, or I don't know if I want to fall off this thing in front of them. And like now when I notice myself have that resistance, I'm like, let's get into it. Let's climb right next to them. Let's like, you know, because this is good for me. It's good for my ego. It's good. I'm in a place with my mindset where I'm like, I need this to like stay humble, or stay grounded, or like just to challenge myself. I don't know. For me, it's a fun opportunity now. But I know that it's not like that for a lot of people. And so I don't know if I would recommend that as an intervention, because that might just like be too much. But yeah, there's a few things you can do. I think one of them is really like understanding that this is like just part of the human condition. Like on some level, we're just going to be worried about what other people think and other people's perceptions of who we are. It's just like a default state for us. And people who deny that, I think, are probably not that self-aware, honestly, because I'm skeptical that there are people who really just don't care at all about what people think.
It's built in.
I just think that it's built in, and even if it looks like people don't care because they're like, you know, non-conventional, or like they just do things their own way, it's like that's, I think, just how their like social fears are manifesting, and they're just manifesting in a different way to like the shy person, you know. And obviously everyone's on a spectrum, and some people care more than others, some people are more confident than others, and blah blah blah, but it is built in for us to care. So I think that's a good thing first, is to just go, okay, I'm human, I'm normal, this is okay. The next thing is to kind of notice when it comes up for you, what are your triggers. The next thing I think is to like slowly start thinking about exposing yourself to those situations, like in an incremental way, and being mindful of what's coming up for you as that happens. One thing that's like really, really helped me is two things. One is to really kind of try and cultivate this idea that you will never, ever be able to control or even know what other people think about you. It's completely out of your control, and the things that you do to try to influence that are probably going to come out negative, like the way that you don't want them to anyway. Like often the harder we try to climb well in front of others or perform in front of others or to not fail in front of others, often lowers people's good feeling towards you, and actually seeing you, fluff some easy climb or whatever, but laugh it off is something that people are probably going to like you for more than for all the other things that you think that they're going to like you for. So there's that. It's just out of your control. So like because I have a lot of fear of what other people think in other areas now, like, my business, like what people think of this podcast, what people think of me on social media, all these other things that I actively work on, but it's hard. And that's the thing that I keep coming back to. It's not my job to control what other people think. And then the other thing is everyone's so self-obsessed that they're not thinking about you anyway.
Yeah.
It's like there's that image, isn't there? I've heard someone talk about this before, where it's like we think that the spotlight's always on us and everyone's watching, but actually we're all going around with like a backpack with like a spotlight that shines on ourselves, and we can only see ourselves, and everyone else has just got their own spotlight on themselves, walking around like little lemmings.
Yeah. We think we're the main character, but we're just the extras and everyone else is.
Yeah, like no
show.
one cares. Like you
Yeah.
go to the wall and literally no one cares like what you can do and what you can't do.
And if they did care, then you shouldn't. Then their opinion is kind of less important to you, probably, because they probably just don't align with your values.
Yeah, and even if they do care like a tiny bit right now, they probably don't care tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, the last bit of this for me is like, what is your mindset, and how does your mindset, how can you own your mindset here? So if your mindset is more, your values are more about, well, climbing is about the experience, it's about me trying hard, it's not about the outcomes or whether I fall or not. And if that's your mindset, how do you kind of show up, at the wall of the gym, at the crag, with that mindset? And it's often, it comes up in loads of ways. It comes up in deciding to climb next to someone and fail next to them. It could come up in how you talk about your climbing, what you're going to do, whether you talk about a grade or whether you talk about, the movement or the experience. And it's also, but it's often in language, I find. I think it's often in how we talk to each other. But yeah, also in our behaviour. And
then is the point that like, if you have a mindset and you show up in a certain way with that mindset, that then the people that you coach will see that. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah, but you're sticking to your mindset and not getting sucked in. You're not getting pulled off course. It's very, I think it's very easy. You're being authentic, and it's very easy to get kind of sucked into or absorb like the mindset around you. And if there's somebody that is, your students, your peers are going to be influenced or be inspired by your mindset. And maybe just like more broadly beyond the coaches, if you're in the climbing gym and you've got imposter syndrome or fear of failure around other people that have come up in the gym, the bros or whatever, it's easy to absorb their mindset a little bit. Mm-hmm. And sticking to your own, showing up and staying authentic to your own mindset is, I think, really important in those scenarios.
Yeah, and it's like the people that you coach, especially if you're interested in all of this stuff, if you're trying to teach them to not have performance anxiety or to give things a go even when a group is watching, but then you don't demonstrate that yourself, you know, showing that you can make a mistake and not climb a climb that maybe is beneath you or that you should usually do or whatever, and how you respond when you do that is going to be highly influential to them. You know, they're going to absorb that. And it's kind
really
of like with
powerful.
parents and kids as well, isn't it? It's like, you know, you often will see parents try to like instill confidence in their kids, but then when they fail, they make a fuss of it and they're very disappointed and they beat themselves up and they're very self-critical. But your kid is going to absorb how you do that and how you, your relationship with yourself and your own climbing, just as much as how they absorb how you kind of like speak to them.
Yeah. You ask yourself, what is my mindset and what is the mindset I'm modelling here? Because
Yeah.
I think it's really, really powerful. How
Yeah. And even when people don't know or think about mindset, they will pick up on your vibe.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
like, you know, that's why the people who are just having the most fun, who are always positive, who just shrug off any mess ups or mistakes or whatever, are just the best people to go climbing with. They're the most fun. They're the people you want to be your teacher or your instructor or your coach.
Yeah, I want whatever they're having.
Yeah, and it's infectious, you know. The vibe is a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's
totally.
tangible, it's in the air.
Yeah,
And we absorb it from those around us.
absolutely.
So basically, if you're listening to this before July 5th,
Oh yeah, I suppose this 5th or 6th.
5th-ish, then you will still have a chance to join the next cohort of Performance Hacks. So Performance Hacks is our online course on performance psychology. It's there to do all this stuff to help you better access flow and clutch and focus and those like performance states, which will help you climb better, but also enable you to have more fun. That's kind of the whole point of the course. And basically, if you're interested, join the wait list. We often sell out. So if you're not on the wait list, you kind of risk not getting a place on the course.
And we're basically having conversations like this.
Yeah, we'll
with
have
our
calls.
students in text. We're writing we're writing answers to questions. We've got an online virtual community. We're having live calls, Q&As that sound a bit like this.
Yep.
And it's really good. We love this stuff.
Yeah,
It's so
the conversations that we have on the Q&As in Performance Hacks are really cool, aren't they? And if you have already done this course or you have it, you might be able to access like these conversations as well. We will basically sell like a support package. So it's basically join this cohort and then that will be at a discounted rate. Yeah, basically you'll get a discount if you join now. Let's like say you've already got Performance Hacks, you'll get a discount. But be quick with that because there's only so many places basically that we can take.
Yeah. And if you're not sure about a course, you can also just keep in touch with us on our newsletter, and then you'll know about the courses that we're running, and you'll just hear a few more ideas like this.
Yeah, we send a little tasty mental training morsel into your inbox for you to chew on over the course of the week.
Yeah, we love that. We get some really good responses from our community there.
Yep. Cool. All right. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys.